Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Thematic Transformations in. Now, before we get to this, I have to take a moment to fetch. I really do. I have to whine and complain, and I know that I'm preaching to the converted because the people who are watching this video aren't interested in what I'm whining and complaining about because you're watching this video. It amazes me, but I have to say this for all you folks who are watching, just to reward you for your time and trouble. You know, people complain and say, you don't use enough musical examples, you don't describe the music and then integrate it with actual sound things and whatnot. And I try and do it, but I have to have permission to use the sound samples. Fortunately, I have general permission to use the Naxos catalog, so I have a lot at my fingertips when I talk about those pieces. And that's one of the reasons I designed a series like this, because it gives me an opportunity to use the recordings to which I have permission. And so here we are, talking about music for its own sake, the wonderment of the genius of the great composers in using their musical materials in their symphonies. I mean, you'd think that's exactly what classical music stuff should be all about and what people should want to listen to. But like the Haydn Symphony Crusade and all the other things where I actually talk about music for people who like to listen to music, these are among my least viewed videos. And I have to say, I was kind of shocked because I thought when I did like works such as Mahler's Ninth and then Brahms' First, things where if I do a review or I talk about them, they get zillions of views. These are still very, very sparsely watched. On the other hand, if I do an obituary about Alfred Brendel, I get 30 trillion views in the first 5 minutes because people think I'm going to be saying outrageous things and they want to see, what the show is. And I get it. It's a show. I'm putting on a show. I understand. But it would be so nice if in addition to putting on a show, I got a little bit more attention for the musical things. So all you people who are watching this, tell your friends, please. Bring in some people. Let's show that there's some actual interest in the music itself. That would be marvelous, wouldn't it? Okay, I'm done venting. I may vent on another video where I do something outrageous, just to give people the zots, not that it'll matter. Anyway, here we go. Mendelssohn, Symphony number 3, the Scottish. Now, Mendelssohn worked on this symphony for about 12 years, from the early 1830s, to about 1841 or so. Really amazing. He agonized over it. He really did. And it is one of the most marvelous romantic symphonies. And as I've said many times in talking about it, it's a model for so much that came later. Schumann learned a ton from it. Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony would never exist without it. The Franck D minor. Why? Because it's the first great romantic symphony to go whole hog on what we call cyclical form or cyclical construction, or the use of cyclical themes. That just means they come back. They come back in most of the movements, one way or another. And this symphony has a motto theme, and that motto theme reappears over and over and over and over again, but in vastly changed form. Really wonderful form, and in different places where you're not going to expect it. Of course, the first great, crazy example of cyclical form was Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, where you have an idée fixe, an idea where, the composer has got this thing in his head and it shows up in every movement. But this is a little bit different. It's a little bit different that the motto is the actual thematic material of the various movements, whereas in Berlioz, it's sort of inserted in movements which otherwise have independent thematic material. So, there are different ways to look at it, but this is an absolutely glorious symphony. It really is. And the motto theme you hear immediately, right at the beginning in the introduction. It's do 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 do. Oh, it's just beautiful, soulful, mournful. It's legendary style. That's just great. Absolutely great. And so that theme becomes, just speeded up, the main theme of the ensuing allegro, the quick movement, the first movement. But there's more to it than that, because the first movement is essentially what we call monothematic. That is, it's entirely based on the music of the introduction, the motto theme. It's based on a single idea, which is metamorphosed and has extended in different ways as the music plays. But Mendelssohn always comes back to it. And so for this first example, I'm going to play you the theme as it appears in the introduction, the motto. Then I've inserted a half a second pause because it's a long introduction. It goes on for like 4 or 5 minutes. And then the allegro starts. But I'm going to cut just from the opening motto to the way we hear it at the start of the allegro, the quick movement. And then I'm going to play you most of the exposition of that allegro, so you can hear how Mendelssohn is constantly using the motto to spin off different extensions and sort of angles on the same idea. It's really pretty splendid. So here it is on Naxos with the National Symphony Orchestra of Ireland under Reinhard Seyfried, pardon me, Mr. Seyfried on Naxos. It's really special. So motto, half a second pause, and then the allegro exposition. Isn't that beautiful? Very simple to hear, right? I mean, it's really, really that's great. So that is the first transformation of the motto into the main theme of the allegro. But I cannot leave this movement without making a point that has nothing to do with thematic transformation. Nope, nothing, zippo. There is one completely new original idea in this exposition at the very end. It's the closing theme of the exposition. It's called a cadence theme. It brings it to a close. There is a famous story about these two symphonies, which is that Schumann mixed up the Scottish and the Italian symphonies. He thought the Italian was Scottish, the Scottish was Italian, whatever it was, he got them totally confused. There is a good reason for that, because that cadence theme is possibly the most Italian-sounding thing that Mendelssohn ever wrote. It's even more Italian than anything in the Italian symphony. It's useless to ask what it's doing there, because I don't know if Mendelssohn thought it was Italian, but boy, does it sound Italian to me. And I just wanted to play it for you, just so that we could give Schumann some peace. I think a little bit of happiness, and because it really, if you're trying to figure out just from a title and from a piano score, by the way, because you probably never even heard the things in an orchestra played that way. In those days, you worked from piano scores. We have to cut him some slack, because boy, does this sound Italian. Here it is. Yeah, right. It's the Tarantella theme. Yeah, da 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 da. Yeah, da 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 da. Right? Sort of. Kind of does that. Yeah, da 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 da. Yeah, da 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 da. Oh my God, it's so Italian. Who are we kidding? All right. I just wanted to toss that out there for you to enjoy and savor. Now, the next time we hear the motto theme is in the Scherzo, the second movement, where it is utterly transformed. It's in a major key. It's kind of amazing, frankly. Just do 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 do. It becomes do 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 do. But it's the same tune. You can hear the outlines of it in that wonderful clarinet melody. It's just, and as it's repeated, it's just a brilliant transformation of the opening motto. I find it thrilling. I really do. Not only that, but the movement itself is just wonderful. So here's the opening of the Scherzo. Yeah, get it? Isn't that nifty? It's just one of those marvelous things that, the more you listen to it, the more you'll hear the resemblance. You'll begin to get it. The first few times I heard it, I had no clue. None whatsoever. I mean, I didn't make any association at all between that theme, but it's actually a very, very literal reimagining in terms of its shape and its rise and fall and all of that stuff of the motto theme. Now, the Adagio, the slow movement, has no reference to the motto. It's a completely independent movement, and that is a good thing because because, when you are working this way with mottos and transformations, it's very, very easy to fall into the trap of being boring and monotonous, because, it just keeps coming back, and you're like, okay, it's coming back. Why is it coming back? What's it doing? It sounds the same. Even if the transformations are really brilliantly done, it's always good to have contrast. Contrast is a good thing. Monotony is a bad thing. So for this it's a beautiful Adagio, and it's a long movement, 9-10 minutes, something like that. Mendelssohn writes completely new things, and we don't have to deal with it. And that's a great thing. The music is certainly of a piece with the rest of the symphony, but you don't have to make yourself crazy trying to hear the motto. So that's good. And Mendelssohn also asked, by the way, that all of the movements of the symphony be played without pause. So if you play them all without a break, then this big middle chunk of different music is really welcome when you hear it. I'm just talking about the larger scale structure of the symphony. Now, the finale, which is marked like Allegro Guerrero or Guerrerico or something like that, you can do it either way. Well, it doesn't even say that here. It just says Allegro Vivacissimo, and then Allegro Maestoso Assai. So it's like very vivacious, but it's supposed to be warlike. It's chunk 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 chunk. Anyway, no motto there. The motto comes in as the second subject of the finale. It's not in the usual spot, which is another way that Mendelssohn creates variety and allows for interesting, independent thematic material to set the mood. And then when we hear the motto come in, it's very, very clear. Da da da, ba-dum bum ba da da. Couldn't be clearer that it's our old friend from earlier on in the symphony, and here it is. So that's how Mendelssohn uses it in the finale, fast part. Then there's a coda, a majestic coda, where the music transforms from the minor key, turbulent, warlike, I don't think it sounds that warlike, but it's turbulent, opening of the movement, to a triumphant, heroic, the sun has come out, peace reigns, glorious victors parade before us, whatever you want to think about it. And it is a final, absolutely glorious transformation of the motto theme, exactly, by the way, as happens in the coda of Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony. It's very, very similar to that situation. And here is the final, heroic, wonderfully victorious version of the motto at the end of the symphony. Oh, God, I love that. Now, this coda has come in for its amount of guff. I mean, Otto Klemperer famously hated it. He didn't like the happy transformation at the end. He thought that it would be better if it sounded miserable. not miserable, but different, other. He wasn't convinced. I've always been convinced. I take this stuff as it comes. That's one thing I learned. One of the things I've discovered is that, you take the music on its own terms. If it's not going to be successful, if it sounds somehow hollow or insincere, is that the word? Well, that's for each person to determine for themselves. I have no question about the music's sincerity, because Mendelssohn had practically no sense of humor whatsoever and took himself extremely seriously, nowhere more so than here. And it is an absolutely glorious finale. The problem with that coda, as I've said before in other talks, is that it was parodied by Arthur Sullivan in The Pirates of Penzance, where the policemen are going off to fight the pirates and they're not going, and the music's going, away, away, yes, yes, we go, these pirates slay, ta-ra, ta-ra, then do not stay, ta-da, ta-da, then why this delay? Oh, yes, we go, yes, forward to the foe, yes, but you don't go, we go. That is the coda of the Scottish Symphony. And so it did become an object of a certain amount of mockery, I think, later on, as a result of it, people who don't even know where the Pirates of Penzance came from have this sort of feeling that there's something wrong with that finale because they may have heard it before in another context. But I don't have any problem forgetting about that entirely and just taking it for what it is in the context of Mendelssohn's Scottish Symphony. And the more you know it, I find, the more convincing that last transformation becomes, the more inevitable, particularly if you listen to how it's used as the second subject, because it converts in the course of its treatment as the second subject of the finale into a triumphant major key, but only briefly. And so it's not just a coda which is a tale attached superficially and without thought and with no relationship to anything that's come before. There is a certain inevitability, a certain preparation for what is about to come. And it's only people who ignore that, who feel that something's wrong with it. So I just want to bring that up so that you can make your own decisions. In any case, there you have it. One of the most fabulous examples of thematic transformation in any romantic symphony, and one of the very, very earliest and most influential, a superb piece of music. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.